majority of the 18th district wants you to cast a vote that is totally against your convictions, but is clearly the will of the majority of the people you serve?
I would vote no. I'm up here to tell you straight up who I am, what I believe, what I think. When I go to Washington, I'm not going to vote based on polls. I'm not going to look at the paper and say, oh, this is the way people want me to vote. I'm going to vote who I am. I can't be pushed. I can't be persuaded to change. I will not cast an unconstitutional vote. I will not vote to save a buck just for the purpose of saving a buck. You see, we got too many politicians that are swayed. The newspapers will run and say, look, people want this or people want that. And we had that all the time with the Clinton administration. It seemed like every day they'd run different polls, so Clinton would be on that bandwagon or that one. We cannot elect people that are going up there to be swayed by opinions. This is why we have these kind of things, so all of us can tell you out here and tell you this is what I believe, this is what I feel. You know, if we would elect somebody who thinks like we do, and somebody who believes like we do, when they get to Washington, guess what? They will vote like we would vote. So that's why you're here tonight, is to pick between us to see who thinks like I do, who believes like I do, and that person will vote like I do. So now I'm not going up there to be run by polls. I'm going to say what I am and believe what I am, and that's what you're going to get when you send me there.
Fred, should CO2 be considered a hazardous substance as recently determined by the U.S. EPA?
I spent a lot of time doing battle with the U.S. EPA and the Ohio EPA during my 16 years as a cabinet member. I've been to the Region 5 office in Chicago many times, and I don't know what they're drinking up there, but it's almost as if any type of economic progress seems to be something they want to impede in one way or another. The Supreme Court has ruled that they can make a determination on whether it is something they can regulate or not. They've decided to do that, or at least the threat is there. But once again, the EPA seems to impede a lot of economic progress. When I was with the Department of Agriculture, I ran into this time and time again, especially with permitting large livestock operations. And after 10 years, we just threw our hands up in despair and said it's time to make a change. So we transferred the permitting responsibility from the Ohio EPA to the Department of Agriculture, and things began to happen at that point. That's not to say that we still weren't respectful of the environment. I consider myself to be somebody that enjoys the environment. We should always be good stewards of the environment. But we see bureaucrats, many of those are attorneys, young attorneys right out of law school, that come and tell us why we can't do an economic development project. And I know for a fact there are projects right here in this county that are being held up because of the U.S. EPA regional office, the Region 5 office in Chicago.
Are you in favor of the current administration's timeline for the withdrawal of our troops from Iraq? And if not, what should we do to secure that nation?
Well, we should never tell our enemies what our plans are. If we do that, you're telegraphing to the enemy what we're going to do and kind of defeat your purpose. How can you win a war when you're going to tell the enemy when you're going to pull out? We should be determined. We should send a clear message to all our enemies and terrorists that we're going to win and we're going to use what we have to do to get it done. And to say we're going to pull out at a certain timetable is ridiculous. And what we need to do in Iraq is what we are doing. We did the surge. We got more casualties have gone way down in the last year. They've had democracy, form of government being instilled, and we got a good chance to have a democracy over in that area of the world. And I think that's a real good thing. And we'll pull out at some point, but we need to make sure that the government's their own military, we're training the military and their police. So we should never tell them what we're going to do. But one thing we can tell them we're going to do, though, is that we're over there, we decide that we're going to fight that war, we're going to fight to win. We just don't go over there and screw around. And I grew up in the Vietnam era, and we probably shouldn't have been over there in hindsight, but we didn't go over there to fight to win. So we need to go over there and make sure that they're aware that we're going to win, and the United States is going to tolerate that. And we need to support our troops at the same time. And when our troops come home, we need to support them. And so I guess that's the best way to answer the question is, we're over there to win. And if I was leading a Congress that's going to make sure that our Commander-in-Chief is saying that message clearly, because it also concerns to our allies. We've got to send a clear message to our allies that we're going to be there, and we're not going to renege our commitment to our allies.
Brett, do you agree with the popular belief that there is sufficient scientific evidence to support the global warming theory?
As I think has been stated, I also agree that, even before ClimateGate, if you will, where all the evidence began to be disputed because of the scientific data that is now in question, I was pretty much in opposition to a lot of this idea of global warming, and I can get into all the reasons why. But the short answer is no. I believe that our Earth goes through normal cycles. I believe that the biggest production of our heat comes from the sun. I believe that the reason why the country warms, or the nation or the world warms and cools, is more based on what the sun is doing. And as Jeanette was mentioning just a little bit ago about that cycle, if you study sunspots, when there's major sun activity, we go through heating cycle, which we just went through an unprecedented level of solar flares. And of course, we went through a season when the scientists were all screaming that we were going to burn to death. I remember growing up when I was in school in the 70s and the early 80s, they told us we were moving into an ice age. We're all going to freeze to death. Do you guys remember that? And they were trying to figure out how to warm the planet up. And if you go back and look, there was the solar flares were at an all-time low. They're also, again, now way, way low. That's why the planet's cooling. And so, no, I do not personally buy into man-made global warming. Just real quick, I think this is an interesting piece of information. When Mount St. Helens erupted, it released, I don't know the exact number, because 5, 6, and 46% of all percentages are made up on the spot. But a high level of the gases that were released by that one volcanic eruption makes what man has produced in our entire existence. It's competitive. And so, volcanoes are actually doing more damage than man is.